Welcome back to another edition of the Pioneer Sports Scouting Report. With me is Pioneer Prep Sports Editor Bob Allen, and I'm Marty Slaughter. We're going to start things off this week talking a little bit of high school wrestling. Starting first with the Big Rapids wrestling team, Bob, who picked up a school record for dual wins in a season last week. They got a couple more wins last night. Can you talk about how that program has developed since the arrival of Coach Dan Sleeper, and what are some of the strengths of this year's team?
This is Dan Sleeper's second year, and when I talked to him when he took over the program last year, he had kind of a roadmap, and he refers to that often. But he had kind of a plan about 5 years that he thought he could be a top caliber program in the state, not just in the CSAA. And they're following it right along, and the big part of that is the youth program underneath, because nothing beats experience in wrestling. The more mat time you have, the better you are. And so he's getting those kids, he's still a couple years from seeing the fruits of that labor, but that's the start of it. And right now his success is he's got a lot of good wrestlers. He's got Nate Weckesesser down low, Lean Muhammad down low, both who qualified for the state finals individually. And then in the middle weights, they have Sam Miller, they have Jared Warden, Kyle Carter, and they get success because they got a lot of good wrestlers. And if you're going against them, you don't get any momentum. It's you might win a match, but they got such good wrestlers, they're not going to rattle off 2 or 3. They can stop any momentum and get their own little momentum going. So that's a lot of their success.
Another local team also having success in the area. Again, one of the more established programs at this point. Chippewa Hills, Nate Etheridge has the team. They just clinched a share of the CSAA title on Wednesday. Can you talk about the continued success that they've been able to have with some new faces in the lineup this year?
This is what Dan Sleeper wants his team to be. Is Chippewa Hills. Nate, has those guys coming in. He fills the lineup. He's got quality guys, from 103 to 285, and that's the key. Big Rapids is still, a little light in the lower weights. They can't quite fill all the spots, and Chippewa Hills can, and that's why they're successful. And they got quality kids because Nate's been there a number of years. He's got the youth program, and he's seen the fruit of the labor that Dan is going to see in a couple of years if he sticks with it.
Yeah, I agree. A very positive future ahead for both of those programs. Switching gears and moving on to some college hockey. Locally, the Ferris State hockey team coming off a big sweep of Michigan State this past weekend, and the Bulldogs are now within 2 points of first place in the CCHA. And this weekend they hit the road, and the CCHA leading Notre Dame Fighting Irish await them in South Bend. Bob, you had a chance to see Ferris State in action this past weekend against the Spartans. Can you talk about what is working for them right now and how they've been able to now win 5 of 6 games?
What I was impressed with Saturday was their ability just to get after it. Offensively, defensively, they were flying all around the ice. Michigan State seemed to step slow. They didn't know where, Ferris kind of knew where the pass was going before State did, and they were, just kind of made State look a little not good out there. I'll leave it at that. And, Michigan State isn't a top-notch program this year. But, that was the best game I've seen Ferris play this year. And I've only seen them a couple of times. But, that was definitely the best game, and they got to continue that.
Well, this weekend against Notre Dame, a big challenge, one of the more experienced teams in the CCHA. Ferris State last year went on the road and swept Notre Dame. Is a big part of the reason why they were able to win their second CCHA title. What do they have to do this weekend to consider it to be a successful weekend and stay in that CCHA hunt?
For a successful weekend, they have to get at least 3 points. I think that's minimum. But before we get ahead of ourselves in talking about CCHA standings, the one thing that we got to keep in mind is Ferris has played 2 more games than everybody ahead of them. So yes, they're 2 points out of first, but they're also 2 games ahead of everybody. So you got to kind of keep that in mind. With that being said, they still got to get 3 points. Anything more than 3 points, I think, is gravy and keeps them on track to get the league championship.
Yeah, I think Ferris still has to keep in mind this was a team that wants to finish in the top 4 of the CCHA. That's something that Coach Bob Daniels emphasizes all the time. I think that's still got to be the goal for them. They lose defenseman Scott Zarnausen this weekend, but also get back senior center Matthew Kurzinger. Can you talk about the impact that he'll have for the Bulldogs and kind of bolstering that offense?
Their offense doesn't really need a lot of bolstering. That is the great thing about this. I mean, they lead the CCHA in scoring, the top power play unit in the league. So, that's just gravy. I think the bigger concern is Zarnausen being out. If there is a good thing about this, and it's not good that he is out, but Zarnausen was out at the beginning of the year, and all those young kids got a lot of playing time in tough circumstances, tough situations. They can go back and rely on those things that they did earlier in the year. So, yes, you lose Zarnausen, and that's a big loss, but it might not be as big of a loss as if this was the first time it happened.
This week's Athlete Spotlight, we're going to take a look at Morley Stanwood Junior guard Tim Carenduff, who's one half of the Mohawks' lethal backcourt along with Travis McQuaig that has Morley Stanwood visions of finishing toward the top of the CSAA this year. Bob, can you talk a little bit about Tim Carenduff's role on that team and what he provides for the Mohawks in making them one of the better teams in the CSAA this year?
Tim does a lot of good things that, a lot of people don't notice. He handles the ball very well. He passes the ball very well. He can score if he has to. He can hit the outside shot. He creates a lot of things and opens up for his teammates. And, I've talked to a lot of coaches that would love to have Tim on their team because he doesn't really look to score. A lot of guys are, hey, I want the ball, I want to score. Tim can score, but that's almost like a secondary aspect for him.
All right, well, thanks, Bob. Let's check it out. Tim Carenduff, this week's Athlete Spotlight. Tim, can you talk a little bit about the season for Morley Stanwood so far and how you're progressing as a team?
Oh, well, we started out high, and then we hit a little slump where we weren't hitting our shots, we weren't playing good defense. Lost to Big Rapids and Reed City. We're coming around again. We're starting to get back in the groove, play as a team again.
What would you say, if you could describe the style of this Morley Stanwood team's play, can you do a little bit of that and just give us an idea of the type of game that you guys like to play?
We like to shoot, we like to run, we share the ball, we play good defense. We're just up in your face, ready to go.
Okay. What are some of the goals that you and your teammates have for this season as you're getting into conference play here?
Try to come back, get that conference title, and go out and win a district title. Okay. Go as far as we can.
Now, you personally, your game, can you talk a little bit about how long you've been playing basketball and how you got involved in the sport?
Well, we had a 5th grade travel team up in McBain, and then I've just been playing ever since I was in 3rd grade. I was playing with 5th graders. I played against Reed City kids. I transferred here. My dad's always coached me. I played AAU basketball, and I've just played my whole life.
Is basketball your favorite sport? I know you play some other sports too.
I'd have to say basketball is my favorite sport.
Okay. Do you have a favorite player or somebody that you model your game after?
I'm a pretty big fan of John Rondo.
Okay. All right. Well, any goals for you guys, the Mohawks, as you guys head down to the stretch for the rest of the season?
Go get that conference title and try and get that district title at home this year.
All right, welcome back. Joining me now is Pioneer columnist Brandon Fountain. We're going to talk a little bit of Red Wings starting off here. Not the greatest start to the season for them at 1-2, but Brandon, some of your thoughts on the team's play through the first 3 games of the season, and what areas do they have to improve in to kind of turn things around, even though it's early?
Well, I think to start off with is they have a lot of injuries right now. They're down to their 8th and 9th defensemen on the roster. So coming up this Friday, they have another game against Minnesota, and hopefully they'll get some guys back. But injuries are going to be the main thing the whole year out. It's not going to change. All the teams are going to go through with it. And as the Wings starting off as they did, their defense is going to be tested, and their offense is lacking right now. So they're going to need to find ways. And I saw today that they split up Datsuk and Zetterberg. So
yeah, do you feel like that's a good move for this team going forward to kind of distribute some of your offensive firepower a little more evenly throughout the lines?
Well, I think so. And with Damian Brunner in there, they're going to have 3 good sharpshooters and Filppula. I think they need to redistribute it. And especially once they get injuries back, I think you'll see a little bit more cohesiveness.
Yeah, you mentioned Damian Brunner. Everybody still talking about that shootout goal that he had. But he's one of a few different guys for the Red Wings, kind of some young firepower that's been added to the roster. Can you talk about some of those young guys that are going to be playing a little bit bigger role for them this year with some, guys like Holmstrom and Nicholas Lidstrom retiring?
You've got Brunner, of course. The puck just follows him around everywhere he goes, it seems like. But you also have Brendan Smith, who's really getting his first taste of the NHL, and he's going to have to step up big. Jacob Kindle's going to have to step up big. He played a little bit last year. He's going to have to really come into his own with Lidstrom gone, and obviously with the injuries. And I'm still a 2-2 fan, so I love seeing him come in and add a little bit more grit. And with Darren Helm out, you don't have as much as you would.
One of the areas that the Red Wings have struggled so far is on the power play. I think 0 for 15 on the year. How big of a key is that for them to kind of get the offense going?
I think it's absolute. That needs to be their focus right now. Is they work on that. That's giving you an opportunity to score with the other team down. That's a freebie, really. You should, with Datsuk, Zetterberg, Franzen, you should be able to score a goal on the power play.
All right. Well, moving on, we're going to take a look at our first look at the Har Bowl or the Super Bowl, depending on how you look at it. This year's matchup, the Baltimore Ravens take on the San Francisco 49ers. A couple of Harbaughs on both sidelines this year. Jim versus John. I know you're not the biggest Harbaugh fan, but kind of give me an overview of some of your thoughts on this matchup and maybe who is the favorite.
Well, I think to start out with, you got to go with San Francisco as the favorite, hands down. Whether it's Kaepernick or someone else stepping up, they have somebody coming through. They're down 17 to Atlanta, and they come back and they win. They find ways to win, and they know how to win. Whether that goes to coaching, you got to give some credit there to coaching, but it goes to the players for executing the plays and having the fortitude to come back from a deficit like that. As for Baltimore, they're going to be the underdogs again, and I think they love that role. I think with Ray Lewis being the emotional leader, and heck, even Joe Flacco having a great game against New England, I think you're going to see a lot of emotion from that Baltimore sideline, and that's going to be what carries them. At least that's what I believe.
Brandon, another big storyline heading into the Super Bowl is the quarterback matchup, as it always is, but there's really kind of a lack of star power at quarterback. But with both Joe Flacco for the Ravens and Colin Kaepernick for the 49ers, one of them has a chance to emerge as a Super Bowl quarterback. Which quarterback out of these two do you feel has more to prove in this Super Bowl?
Well, first off, I believe that Joe Flacco has a lot he needs to prove. Not to himself anymore. He's proven to himself that he's a starting quarterback in the NFL. Not a lot of people believe that. He's an AFC champion, and I think without a contract, he's going for a contract here in the Super Bowl, and he needs a good showing. Kaepernick, he's going to be who he is. He's come in, gone along with RG3 and Russell Wilson up there in Seattle, kind of taking over the league. But that's what those young quarterbacks do. So.
The running quarterback, that's the interesting with Kaepernick, that you're seeing a lot more of these spread type quarterbacks having success in the NFL. Do you see, if Kaepernick is to win the Super Bowl, he's got a lot of help from the rest of the roster, but having a spread, a running type quarterback, is that indicative of the way that the league's headed, maybe going toward a more athletic starting quarterback?
I think it's kind of morphed into that. Teams have adapted. They know they need to run. To win, you need a running game, whether it's your quarterback or you have Steven Jackson or somebody like that. Obviously, with RG3, it's a different dynamic, especially for a defense who's expecting maybe someone to just drop back and throw it. You got to think that he's going to run, or at least have that in the back of your mind.
Yeah, one last point on the Super Bowl. Ray Lewis obviously has been a big storyline throughout the playoffs since he announced that this will be his last season. Your thoughts on Ray Lewis? Do you feel like this is a good story for the Super Bowl? Do you feel like he, going out as a Super Bowl champion would be a good thing?
Oh, obviously. He's been the emotional leader for that franchise for the last decade and or so. Obviously, he's got character issues off the field, but he's not paid to be off the field. You know, people like him and love him or hate him for what he does on the field. He's emotional. He's probably got more heart than anybody else out there in the field.
All right, well, thanks, Brandon. And we'll take a look and make some predictions on the Super Bowl at next week's scouting report. Once again, I want to thank you for joining us for this week, and stick with us for next week as we take a look at some more sports issues on the Pioneer Scouting Report.